Well, hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It is Dr. Jan with Relationship Matters TV. I hope everyone is having a beautiful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. Well, today I'm going to jump right into it. But first of all, hopefully nothing goes out here. We have a severe thunderstorm warning here in Chicago, and hopefully we'll be able to finish the show without the internet going bluey. But I am going to just go right into it. Today, there is a special guest that I have. And that special guest is Mr. Keith Fortman. Now, let me tell you about Keith Fortman before we go into it. He is a man whose story is not just about survival, but about the relationships that carried him, the faith that anchored him, and the resilience that shaped him. He is a two-time cancer survivor. He has faced the unthinkable and come out not just alive, but awake to the things that matter most. And what are these things? Number one, love. Number two, connection. And number three, living with a purpose. Now, throughout his journey, he has discovered that healing isn't just physical, it's relational. It's about who stands by you, how you allow others to pour into your life, and how you find strength in vulnerability. So he is here today to remind us that sometimes the strongest relationships are forged in the fire, and that no one truly survives anything alone. So I want you to please help me to welcome a man of faith, a man of courage, and a man with deep relational wisdom. So let me bring to you right now, Mr. Keith Fortman. Hello there, Mr. Keith Fortman.
Hello, my queen.
And wait a minute. Why is your name? You got Dr. Janice Fortman. You should have had your name there, but that's all right. You can have my name. So now, for people who are just on Audible and not on can see us visually, I guess you're wondering, wait a minute, her last name is Fortman, and his last name is Fortman. Are they brother and sister? No, they are husband and wife. And he was gracious enough to be my guest on Relationship Matters TV. And how are you? You know what? That's a beautiful background, Mr. Fortman. Where are you?
I'm at home.
You're at home. Okay, Mr. Keith Fortman is at home. And Mr. Keith Fortman is in his, let me do like this, man cave. So let's jump right into it. So may I call you Keith?
Yes, you can.
We won't say other things that I call you. So for today, we'll call you Keith. Now, Keith, I've we've known each other now for how long?
At least 25 years.
My goodness, it just seems like it's only been a couple of days.
Definitely.
I'm saying all the right things.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, just a little background. When I first met you, so what we want to do is really talk about something that I think is very important. We both think is very important, and something we both felt that we should share with the audience.
Mhm.
That is your cancer journey. So I want you to, first of all, just a little bio that I have here somewhere about you. And so you were born and raised in Aurora, Illinois, which is a suburb, or really not a suburb, but another city in Illinois. You're currently married to Dr. Janice Fortman. You have 3 adult daughters, and you're retired from the state of Illinois Department of Corrections. So were you a guard? What were you?
An accountant.
You were an accountant. Okay. And also so that was after 30 years, and then you retired from the city of Aurora after 22 years.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. And as we'll talk about, you are a 2-time cancer survival. And his pastime favorite is anything and everything that has to do with football. Do you want to say who your team is? You can say
Washington Commanders.
Washington Commanders. That is not my team. My team is the Chicago Bears. So just thought I would put that in there. And he currently, well, we're going to save this for later. So now, let's talk about when you first noticed something, a symptom, as far as the beginning of your cancer journey.
Well, in the beginning, it started out something as a real innocent because it was a day that I had a taste for some pork rinds.
Okay.
Then I ate some pork rinds and something strange happened. I coughed up a little blood. Well, I really didn't pay much attention to it since it was pork rinds were sharp. I thought it might have just scratched my throat. But what I found out later, it had actually scratched the tumor that was in the back of my tongue. But so we go back to the beginning of it all. After that was I did go to the doctor to have it checked out. And he told me it was cancerous. But that changed my life. That had to be one of the most traumatic feelings in all the world, hearing the word cancer. So I was trying to wrestle with that. In the meantime, I was directed to go see a specialist who was supposed to guide me through this whole cancer process. His name was Dr. Petrozelli. That name will live in infamy my whole life. I'll never forget him. He was a doctor. He was the best in the area, but he did not have any bedside manners. And so you were there with me, along with my sister and my brother, and you heard the words that I heard. He came with his little chart and looked at me and said, "We are going to cut you from ear to ear, and you won't be able to swallow for the rest of your life." That is how my cancer journey began.
And when he said that to you, what went through your mind?
I could not catch up to the words. I was behind. I was in some type of mini shock, if you will.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I told you as we were walking out that I couldn't even lift my feet up. They felt like lead. So, I mean, I was trying to process this then, but my mind went to the umpteenth and thought about death, actually, and visualizing my own mortality. It forced me to that position. And it was a scary place to be. So, yeah, if you ever get that word cancer, your mind goes off in about 10 different directions.
Okay. So, uh, all right. So he told you those words that I also remember. That, but then he gave you a choice. What did he say?
He said we could go through chemo and radiation
Okay.
as an alternative,
Okay.
which I took.
I was getting ready to say, and so that's what you took.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're going through this journey. After he said, after you decided, well, we all decided that we would go to, you would go through chemo and radiation. But one thing he did say also was that there was no guarantee.
Right.
That there was no guarantee. All right. Now, after he told you that, then what did you have to do? Did he schedule your
we had to schedule
what was
surgery.
first? I'm sorry.
We had to go through surgery to because the tumor was in the back of my tongue. They did not know if I was going to be able to eat. So I was going to have to go through chemo, and they had to put a port in my right shoulder. And they didn't know, a port for the chemotherapy and a feeding tube in my stomach in case I couldn't eat.
Okay, but before you had chemo, when did radiation?
Radiation came after chemo. Chemo was the first.
Okay, so how long did you have to go through chemo?
Chemo was in September of 2009, and it lasted to October. So I don't know how many weeks that was.
And you had to go once a week, or?
Yeah. Well, chemo, chemo was several days a week.
Okay.
So yes, several days a week. I don't even remember how many times it was. Tell you true.
So while you were going through chemo, what was going through your mind when you were going through chemo?
Well, chemo wasn't as shocking to me as the radiation part of it, because the port itself spared me of getting like punctured with a needle on a daily basis. It was one puncture, so they could just put it into the port, and you sat there for 3 hours approximately while this chemo was being run through your body. Okay. So that was really, I was considered the easier part of the journey. Okay. But it's still scary nonetheless.
Okay, so now after your chemo, then they said that you had to go through radiation.
33 sessions of radiation.
Now tell us about that.
Now, the radiation part was, and to this day, is the most frightening position I've ever been put in. They had to, in order to hit the right spot every time, your face had to be snapped to a table. And the only way I could describe it is watching a hockey mask, which they mold specifically for you. You can't have a stuffed nose. You can't have anything. But if you imagine being snapped to a table for an hour while this radiation is hitting that certain spot in the throat, that gives you an idea. Because when I first got there, they snapped me to the table, and they had to do that approximately 5 times because I had to tell them to take it off because I didn't know I had a phobia until I went through that process.
Wow. Wow. So what going through radiation? So that and you say for 3 hours. How did you go through it without just like going crazy?
Well, the funny thing, you should ask that because, as you know, uh, I've always been kind of a bubbly person, and throwing in the towel would be the last thing on my mind. However, the radiation got in my head and got me to the point where I almost decided just to walk away and let fate have its way. But something happened during that period of time. About halfway through my 33 treatments, I was sitting in the waiting room waiting for my name to be called again for the next appointment. And I remember a tear trickling down my face. And my daughter Felicia, she looked at me. She came over there. She said, "Dad, I got something for you." And she put some earphones on my head. And a song was playing. And the name of that song was Never Would Have Made It. That was an earth shattering change in my attitude. Because after that point on, I felt it was like a walk in the park doing the rest of the treatments. And that's why I believe when they say that if God can't come, he will send somebody. So
Okay.
that's how I made it through that. But up to that point, I was to the very edge of giving up.
Okay. All right. So you had that, and then so after the radiation, then you would get tests to check. You had okay. So after the radiation, you had a feeding tube, and so now when you had the feeding tube, well, after the feeding tube, they then you could eat. Correct.
Well, yeah, but the feeding tube was a formula like was something. It had all the nutrients I needed, and it came in a can. So,
Okay.
but they put that through the feeding tube because they
Okay.
weren't sure I was going to be able to eat solid food.
Okay. All right.
As a matter of fact, I did lose my taste for about a couple of months, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I do remember that. That you can taste anything because we went to a Thanksgiving dinner
Yeah,
and you just like no.
right. Lost my taste buds. Right.
Right. Right. Right. And so okay. Now after that, so that so now we know that you've gone through two cancer journeys. So after you recovered from your first cancer, which is the cancer of the back of your tongue. Now, but okay, so cancers usually come from somewhere. But you were a smoker.
Yeah, years ago, yes.
You were a smoker. Did they attribute your cancer to the fact that you smoked?
Well, it wasn't absolute, but it was it was a culprit. Yeah, it was a culprit.
It was a
It
couple.
had to be considered.
Okay. So now you have recovered from your first bout of cancer. You brought us through that journey. And so everything was going fine, right?
Well, I kind of oversimplified it. The part I didn't tell you is the head job of feeling sorry for yourself. Why me? And I remember when I first got the word of the first cancer, I thought I was on an island all by myself. And I said, "Oh, it's only me going through this." And then when I went for my first appointment, I couldn't get in the place. It was standing room only from a lot of other people that had cancer themselves. But yes, that that you're never the same. You don't just sit back with your feet propped up and saying, "Hey, I've made it." So it's almost like looking over your shoulder. You're never
Okay.
comfortable again.
All right. Now, so that's your first cancer journey. How long was it before your second cancer journey?
But the first cancer journey was 2009. The
Hmm.
second was 2018, 9 years later.
Now, how did they discover that, and what cancer was that?
It was prostate cancer, and it came about from the checkups I did with my doctor, and came about through blood tests.
Okay.
And my PSA numbers, what they judged by prostate, had gone up considerably to 9 point something, 9.6,
Okay.
I believe.
Okay. All
But
right.
yeah, but after a point 4, they consider that cancers.
And what did they decide that they that you should do?
Well, I had radiation for that. I didn't
Okay.
have the chemo for that one. Just radiation, and they targeted the prostate area.
Okay.
Oh, no, and actually, let me back up. First, I had the cancer removed robotically.
Okay.
So I had the prostate completely removed.
Okay.
And then the radiation followed the surgery.
Okay. All righty. And how what went through your mind when they discovered that second cancer?
Well, your mind says, what is it? I mean, am I a magnet for this? I don't know. It's a tricky thing. Everybody goes through it differently. I can only speak to my little journey, but like I said, you roll with the punches, and the biggest part is acceptance of the circumstances, because it messes with you. That's all I can tell you. It just, it's there, and all the blood tests, everything changes after that. You just go through a regimen, and you're not in charge of anything. You're just going along for the ride.
Okay. So now how long did that take us for that particular cancer journey from the time that they uh, diagnosed that you had prostate cancer until they said to you, you are in remission?
Well, well, the first. Okay, let's go back to the first cancer. 10 years has to pass by before you're clear. They consider you being clear.
Okay.
So it's a 10-year period. So I'm not at 10 years with the prostate right since that was in 2018. 2028 would be my 10-year for the prostate. But for the
Okay.
first cancer in my throat, that was cleared. And they gave me a clean bill of health for that, which I thank God for.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's really really wonderful. So, how are you today mentally?
I'm feeling great, but still, it's I'll use the analogy of Chicken Little with the skies falling sometimes. You just don't get comfortable anymore. I mean, I know that I know myself that things can change in an instant. One phone call away from whatever. So you just can't just say, okay, everything is great. I appreciate where I'm at. No, make no mistake about it. God has blessed me. I don't know why, and I really appreciate Him. But it doesn't. The human side of me is well aware. It's made me very well. That this life is very fragile.
Okay. All right. So you say life is very fragile. So now, Mr. Fortman,
Yeah.
let's talk about your frame of mind. So you say it's like Chicken Little. Now, does it keep you from looking into the, I mean, looking toward the future? Does it affect, how you, not how you see things today, But as far as going forward, are you always looking like, oh, the cancer might come back? Or do you have times when you don't even think about it and in your mind just look to the future?
Well, yeah, I more or less look to the future. I mean, it is a rear view mirror kind of thing that I look at the cancer, but I can't deny that of what I went through, and still, I have no idea what the future holds. It could happen again, but as far as I am today, now it has given me a better appreciation of health, and that's why I go to the health club 5 days a week and try to keep myself in the best shape I can. And I've learned along the way that if I do have any concerns, I want to check it out immediately. I don't let it just linger without knowing what's going on. And I think that's about the best recipe I can tell somebody is if you think something is wrong, check it out and don't try to self-analyze. Go to the specialist, let them call the dogs off.
Okay. So for men, especially, so what do you suggest? Well, you just said physically, but let's say mentally or emotionally, what advice would you give them?
Well, the men have always been hesitant to seek out medical attention. And for whatever reason, that they're afraid of what they're going to find out. But regardless of whether you want to find out about it or not, it's not going to change the circumstances. So you need to
Okay.
go find out, see what you can do about it, and get healthy.
Okay. Okay. All righty. And also, the show is entitled Relationship Matters TV. So let's talk about relationships because one thing that you shared in your bio, it says that you discovered that healing isn't just physical, it's relational. So it's about who, and you said it's about who stands by you, how you allow others to pour into your life,
Well,
and how you find strength in vulnerability. So let's talk about that. When we say that it's relational, that it's not just physical. How important is it? How important was it for you to be able to share your journey to people, and how was it as important to you for people to not shy away from you, you know what I'm saying,
mhm.
but really kind of stand by you and support you? Is that something that's really important when someone is going through, especially the journey that you're going through, that you
It
have
absolutely,
gone through?
it absolutely is important. In fact, it might be the most important because first, I think there's three elements that you have to absolutely have when you go through something, either through cancer or anything traumatic. You have to have faith in God because if without that, you're just no place. You're in a place of no hope, and that goes along with faith. I'll put that with that too. And even Jesus said, all you need is a faith the size of a mustard seed.
Right.
But the other part of this is the family. And this is where my appreciation is the most. With you, Janice, my queen, standing by me. I don't know how people go through that alone. I know they do it, but I have no idea how because I am not that smart and I'm not that brave to face this stuff all by myself. So I needed my network, my family, my friends to cheer me on because there were times I was lost and I couldn't find my way. I had to have literally people have hold my hand and guide me through this process. It's a scary, very scary process, and that's about the best way I can explain it.
A lot of times men don't want to share, as far as they have cancer. As a matter of fact, in our culture, and I don't know about other cultures, but at one time it was whispered, oh, he has cancer. Don't say anything. He has cancer. But
Mhm.
I'm very happy that you are being open with what you're saying. Uh, and I do remember, like you say, people standing by you. I do remember when you were diagnosed, and when you talk about someone standing by you, because I'm going to talk about me now. Uh, uh, we were not married.
Yeah.
We were boyfriend and girlfriend. And I remember telling a colleague about you and cancer. And I was told by more than one person, girl, run, Janice, run. You don't have to this. You all are not married. Let him find someone. And I remember you lived. I lived in Chicago, and you lived in Aurora, which is about an hour away. And we have to talk about that one time. I'm going to have you on, and we're going to talk about how we met and how I decided that you would be the one. But
Okay.
anyway, but 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 anyway, um, I remember you lived as a bachelor by yourself, and I decided that I knew that you needed to be taken care of, and so I decided that you would come to stay with me, and essentially, I was your caregiver, even though we were not married. So, um, when I'm saying this to women who are out there who might have someone who they really care about, and how it is important for them for you to show your support. But also, on the other hand, that person also has to be willing to share. And now we're talking about vulnerability. In other words, not saying, oh, everything is fine, oh, I'll be okay, oh, whatever. But the fact, just to be able for the men and women too, because it happens, to be vulnerable so that they can get the support that they need. So that's relationships, that's with your family. Now, what about your friends?
Well, let me
Were they
say this,
supportive?
yo.
Oh,
Just from what you just said, I can let you know that I will be forever grateful for your decision.
wait.
I will be forever grateful for your decision that you made.
Oh, thank you. I thought you put an S on that, like decisions.
No, yours. No, no, you made a decision.
I know it, but I'm
Mhm.
talking about future decisions. Decision.
No, no,
Decision.
no, I
What I
didn't
did.
talk about the future.
You
I
know
just
I
talking
can
about
mute you, right? You know I
the
can mute
decision,
you.
even though we weren't married, that you stuck by me, and I
Well,
said
yeah.
I'll be forever grateful.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that, Mr. Pete Fortman. Um, okay, I'm going to keep that. I'm going to record just that little spot when it's something that I really, really want.
Oh no, see, oh,
I'm like, okay, you say you're gonna be grateful. Let me show you how you can show this. But anyway, okay, so that's as far as so what about your friends? Were they supportive, or did they kind of pull back from you?
no, my friends and family, they were great. Like I said, I couldn't have made it on my own.
Okay.
Uh, like I said, it's a club you don't want to belong to.
Okay. So spiritually, how is it important to to have a spiritual life? And so what did you rely on spiritually, and is that important?
Well, it spiritually has everything to do with it. Now, I've been in church all my life, and I have to admit, sometimes I went through the ritual or whatnot. But when you're called on the carpet, and this is not a test, that this is for real. Those little wimpy prayers I did before, passe, it was for real. And I can remember, I got to share this then. I remember going through the first cancer when I had to go to surgery to have the chemo the chemo port and the feeding tube put in me, and I got my hugs and kisses from y'all, and but you guys can only go so far. So I remember being on a gurney right outside the surgery. I had, I just had never been that afraid. My life had been flashing before me. Hey, and the driving force behind everything was because I didn't know how the story was going to end. So I'm sitting there on the gurney crying. I'm just feeling like whatever it is, letting these emotions come out. But a strange thing happened. In the midst of all this, a calm came over me. And it was as if saying, hey, can't get around, if I can't get around this, let me go through it. And my circumstances had not changed. I was still sitting right outside the surgery room. So I'm still puzzled to this day. God had mercy on my fears and wiped them completely away. So I went on to say that is that if you don't have faith, you're in a lot of trouble because the devil will come visit you. He come visit those who are on the Lord's side. But if he comes to you, you don't have the Lord to lean on, and you're out there by yourself, you're in deep trouble.
Wow. 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 And speaking of that, give us what happened. Okay, I'll start it off. I'll say this. And it just shows when we talk about relationships, this is something that happened that came from your daughter to the radiation to something else. So anyway, we were on a cruise, Keith and I, the Soul Train cruise. And I'm standing in line, in the buffet line, in the breakfast buffet line. And I'm standing next to this man and kind of, a little pudgy man. And he had on a t-shirt, some shorts, and flip-flops. And we're just in that line complaining because they hadn't brought any more shrimp out. And Keith was in the other buffet line, and he's just grinning. And I'm like, why is he standing over there grinning? And when we got out of line and we went and we sat down, he said, do you know who you were over there talking to? And I'm like, no. I said, some little man, he was, complaining about food. And you said, that was who?
Marvin Sapp.
And Marvin Sapp song is called what?
Never Would Have Made It.
All right, now you do the rest of the story.
Well, I had a chance to, we were on a picnic on an island out the cruise that we had, and Pastor Marvin Sapp was in the line, and I was right next to him. And I got up to him. I said, well, Pastor, I said, I don't want anything from you. I just want to let you know that you helped me through my cancer journey. And after it wasn't a long, drawn out conversation. But I got satisfied because I actually met a hero of mine. So anyway, later on that night on the cruise.
You met the man that helped you go through your cancer journey.
Yes.
The radio.
But that wasn't the end of the story. Later that night, my Pastor Sapp was being interviewed, such as the Oprah Winfrey Show. And so we were just, you and I were sitting there listening to him, and I was asking him questions. And he said, you know what? A young man came up to me today. He told me a story, and he helped me make a decision. He said, I was thinking about quitting the music side of my ministry and just go preaching full time. But this young man helped me make a decision to keep on singing. And my eyes watered up because our paths have crossed.
And And because your paths crossed, you, through your journey and through your relationship with that song, actually, it to me, it's like you manifested meeting him, and the fact that you ended up affecting millions of lives because of that meeting, and because of that relationship, even though it was brief,
Mhm.
because of that relationship.
Yeah, well, I had my eyes watered up. I I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Right, because we both were sitting there and our mouths just dropped open. Like, what?
Yeah.
OMG. Oh my gosh. So, another question that I have for you is when you see other men and you find out that they have gone through this journey, the same journeys that you, or journeys or journey that you have gone through, what advice do you give them? If you were to have a conversation, if they came up to you, let's say a man came up to you and said to you, man, they just told me I have cancer, and I'm just lost. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to move forward. What would you say to them?
Well, one thing I want to know, I'd like to know if they're religious in terms of involved in his support network, because without that base, it's going to be awful difficult to process what is to come. Because you have to know that what you're in, you can get out. If you don't believe that you can get out of your situation, that is hopeless. And that means you don't believe, you believe that all there is what you're going through. So, I mean, that I tell them that first of all. And I will tell them that you don't have to go through this alone. You know, if it, make sure you have good family, good friends, and stuff like that. Share it with them because, like we were talking about, the different, the men between difference between men and women is women will share stuff with other women. It's our society. It's not conducive for men to share stuff with other men. That would be a sign of weakness. And too many men are caught up in that, and they lose the benefit of that support network. But I would tell them, you know, go do everything that you're supposed to do, first of all. And if you've caught it early, that's when you're blessed now. But if you, a lot of people have, they go through stuff, they've had signs for years, maybe, and that's a sad fact. But that doesn't help you because by that time they're giving you some grim news. But I would try to give them some support, and let them know that I can't tell them everything's going to be all right because I don't have the power. But I can tell you things will be all right if you go through the process and do the right things. There's a good chance that you can make it to the other side.
Okay, all righty. And so, uh, I know that in your church, weren't you a part of a ministry? I think it was Sick and Shut In,
Well, sick
you had, or the
and we
cancer
had
ministry or something like that.
yeah, we had the sick and shut in, but we actually had a cancer ministry.
So you were a part of that cancer ministry. So how did that help you? I know you
Well,
helped others,
well,
but how did that help you? Being,
well, the
yeah.
men yeah, well, it helped me in that it lets me know that, hey, because you need as much support as you can get, that it was well, since just really dealt with men at the time, it was like a brotherhood, and I've gotten some friends from that experience because it's like a fraternity of sorts. Once you're in that club, it's I don't want to call it special, but it's unique. But the thing about it is, if, after going through cancer, it doesn't make any difference. When I hear somebody going through cancer, male, female, black, white, or otherwise, it doesn't make any difference. That does something for me. It rings a bell to me, and my heart really goes out for you if they're just hearing about it. Because that's when the biggest fears come into your life at the beginning.
So it's helpful to help others.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it does. It's good because, like I said, no man is an island. We all need somebody.
Okay. All righty. So, I wanted you to come on because I know, since I really went on the journey with you,
Hmm.
I know that, how the journey went, but I just wanted you to share with others about what happens, of what, how you can go through this journey and what it took for you
Hmm.
to go through this journey and come out on the other side.
Yeah, and then plus too, the other side of the coin too is I've had quite a few of my best friends pass away through medical issues. And if you have a best friend that passes away, that is devastating. You can't replace them. They're gone. There's a big hole in your life. And so I've had several of them, as a matter of fact. And yeah, if I can get somebody to get away from that and get to see the doctor and save their life, that's beneficial.
Yeah, I was going to say that I know that there were a couple that really passed away because either they didn't go to the doctor or the doctor told them what they should do. They did not follow the doctor's direction.
Hmm.
And so it's important to be your own advocate, but it's also important to listen to the physician or the surgeon that tells you, what they feel is best for you.
Yes, but I still think the whole thing about it is whether it's a cold or cancer, catch that situation early, and then you have a good prognosis.
Okay. Now, let's go to what's happening right now. We only got a few minutes left. Um, so what do you do to maintain your health now?
Well, as I said, I go. The motivator is for me to go to the health club at least 5 days a week. Hopefully, I can keep my body in decent shape. So whatever comes next, if something befalls me, at least I'll be healthy enough, hopefully, to survive whatever.
And okay, so you work out 5 days a week. Okay.
Tell them why you're doing that.
Because I only work out 3 days a week. And you're losing you lost weight and I'm still struggling. And okay, so what about your diet? I know,
Well,
wait a minute. The way you used to eat was, oh, I take no prisoners. But now tell us about your diet. Tell us
yeah,
how to
there was a time.
maintain, you
There
maintain a
was
healthy diet.
there was a time when I had a plate of food. I wiped the whole thing out. Now I I I I notice what I put in my mouth now. As a matter of fact, I just had a year and 3 months ago had a health scare because I overdid what I was supposed to do. I cut back on salt and overdid it and ended up in the hospital because my sodium was too low and it made me pass out. So yes, I'm motivated to try to stay a little healthier than I've been.
Okay.
So I advise people, there's nothing worse than just being a couch potato because that'll catch up with you sooner or later.
Okay. All right. So I know we've gone through your journey, and we've covered a lot of things, but what I want you to just summarize, what is the last thing that you would want to say to people, not just men, but people out there who are going through any kind of traumatic journey or illness? It could be cancer, it could be heart problems, it could be, an illness that's really traumatic, so to speak, not just a cold or anything like that. But what would advice would you give them, and what would you say to them?
Well, I'll probably tell them to take charge of their life. They're not victims, they're victors. Only because if you take charge of your life, then you have some forethought as to what's going on in your life. If something's wrong with you, don't take it for granted. It's just nothing. Check it out. Go see the doctor, have him analyze it and give you some instruction from that point. But the thing about it is, if you catch stuff early, you're in a much better position than someone who just ignores it totally.
Okay. All righty. Uh, Before we go, I have to tell everyone that Keith is a part of Toastmasters International, and he's a wonderful speaker. And yes, you are.
Thank
He's
you.
been in contests and everything. Um, and you did a speech called "Prepare for War in the Time of Peace."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good
That's
example.
something that you see is really extremely important to, or was extremely important in your journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I would also advise everyone just because you're feeling healthy today, don't ever think that it cannot happen to you. It's just that's the way life is. And I've learned over the years, I used to think life was about bad luck, good luck. Life is just about life. It just comes in many forms.
Okay. Well, Keith, thank you so much for being my guest.
Yes, my queen.
I want to thank you for sharing your story, for sharing your journey. And uh, thank you for calling me your queen. You are my king.
Dr. Queen.
Oh. Okay, doctor. And so one day, I'm going to have Keith on again because he was gracious enough to come on this time. And we're going to talk about relationships, and we're going to give you the whole story of how we met and just our journey. How long have we been married? You got to tell
We've been
me.
married since 2010, 15 years.
Oh my God, it just seems like it was only yesterday. And it'll be 16 years on June.
13. But we've been together since 2002.
That's very true. That's very true. And so so I want to thank you again, Keith, for coming on the show, for sharing your journey. And
Okay.
I really, really
My
hope,
pleasure.
of course, and I really, really hope that you have put some valuable insights, and you have motivated and inspired people through your journey, how you have come through your journey. And you are still a bubbly person. He laughs all the time. All right. So you have a beautiful, blessed rest of your evening.
Okay, you too, dear.
And and I'll see you a little later.
Okay,
Well, when you come out of your man cave.
okay.
All righty. Bye bye.
Bye.
Well, that was enjoyable for me, at least. I hope that you all really got something out of it, and it's just really important, as he said. If you when you think something is wrong, go to the doctor. Go check it out. Don't think, oh, okay, I don't know. But when he first had that little blood thing, he thought, he let it go. But then as time went on, he thought, you know what? Let me go to the doctor and see about this. And that's when they discovered the cancer. So I hope that I brought you some value, that we've brought you some value today. And I have one comment. Thank you, Maxine Walker. She said it was a very good show. Thank you very much, Walker. Maxine. Okay. Thank you. All righty. So I will see you again next week, next Thursday on Relationship Matters TV. I hope everyone is having and will have a beautiful, blessed morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And what I want to do really right now is to thank all of you, thank all of my viewers and my listeners, because I checked my analytics and I just got them for March, and there are over 62,000 of you viewing. I love you. Thank you so much. And keep watching Relationship Matters TV. If you would like to be on the show because you have a story that you want to share, or if you know someone who would make a great guest, all you have to do is send it to me on you can email me here at janfornow125@gmail.com. That's JAN the number 4 NOW 125 at gmail.com. But if you would like to be a guest, then please email me at Dr. Jan at drjanisfortman.com. So I will see you again next Thursday, 7 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. No, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and 5 p.m. PST for all of you who are in California on the West Coast. All righty. So take care. See you again next week on Relationship Matters TV. Bye-bye.